Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And not only are the NBA Finals going on right now, the Stanley Cup Finals are about to start between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. We figured let's talk about this too because stick and puck is fun. Stick and puck is fun. So, Tim, you ready to break this down in our Stanley Cup Final preview?
Hey, I'm a little casual hockey fan of my own, so let's run it.
Let's do it. So this matchup is essentially Goliath versus Goliath. The Colorado Avalanche, who were first in the Central Division with 119 points, against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are looking to three-peat. So before we get into the matchups, let's go over each team, starting with the Colorado Avalanche. They finished the season with 119 points, 56 wins, 19 losses, and 7 overtime losses. They had the number 1 seed in their division. This team is loaded top to bottom. Like, you can't leave out Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, who has been absolutely tearing it up, Gabriel Landeskog on the wing, Valeri Nichushkin on the other wing, Mikko Rantanen, who's leading the team in goals and points, Devon Toews, who's messing stuff up on the defense. And that's not even mentioning Nazem Kadri, who's been injured, but may come back sometime during the Stanley Cup Final, who has really emerged as a star and an X factor for the Avs. So this team has goal scoring in spades. They are one of the most well-rounded teams in the league. It's just too bad that they have the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions on the other side in the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had a little bit more rough of a season with 51 wins, 23 losses, and 8 overtime losses, which was good for 110 points and third in their division. But Tampa Bay managed to run through the Maple Leafs, the Panthers, and the Rangers to get to this point. And you don't reach your third consecutive Stanley Cup Finals if you don't have dudes, and oh boy, they have stars like Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov. They can put the puck in the net. Andreas Palat, he was a good trade deadline acquisition. You can't leave out Victor Hedman, who can also wreak havoc on both sides. And then Andrei Vasilevsky in the net, who has been absolutely fantastic
He holds down the fort for them, for sure.
He holds down the fort, and he is one of the best goaltenders in the NHL, and that can honestly be a factor. Braden Point is essentially another X factor that they have. He was injured, but he could also return at some time during the Stanley Cup Finals. So when we look at these two teams, Tim, what stands out to you in the Stanley Cup Final matchup?
You know, the thing for me when looking at these two teams is it really seems like a matchup of the more dominant offensive team and the more dominant defensive team. Now, both of these teams are very balanced, but you look at the Avalanche, and in terms of like overall team stats, they are pretty significantly higher in terms of possession, in terms of the goal for percentage. Anything in terms of the offensive side of the game, they really control the puck very well. They've got a lot of guys that can do a lot of damage. Now you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've got guys that, I mean, you've got the recognizable names. You talked about Hedman, you talked about Vasilevsky, you talk about Kucherov. Those guys have been here in and out. So you've got real experience.
Forget about Stamkos too.
Oh, of course, he's been around for quite some time too. But you've got the experience and the overall might of the Tampa Bay Lightning that have gotten themselves here 3 years in a row and won the last 2. And you've kind of got like the up and comers with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, it's really weird because the Tampa Bay Lightning are going for their third straight cup. You think that makes the Avalanche underdogs, but that's just not true.
Not when you look at the books and you look at really these teams stacked up stat wise, is the Avalanche do seem to edge them out really in terms of advantage here heading into here. But it's so hard to tell with the experience and with the roads that each team has had coming into the Stanley Cup Finals, and we'll talk about some of that here in a bit. But it's certainly going to match up to be a very interesting series.
Yeah, and another thing that I want to talk about is you look at the teams that get to this point, and one thing that they almost always have in common is that superstar defenseman. You look at Colorado, with Cale Makar, who has really burst onto the scene and has been another
stud
superstar for the Avalanche. And of course, you have Victor Hedman for the Lightning, who he was up there in points and led the team in assists. So you can't understate the impact that both of these guys have, both on offense and on defense. So that's going to be a huge factor. And another huge factor that I want to bring up is the goaltending. You see that like these teams are pretty evenly split right down the middle, but the one area where one team has a clear advantage over the other
goaltending is a big strength of the Lightning.
Is in the net, because quite frankly, Andrei Vasilevskiy is insane. He is nuts. He stops everything, and not much is getting by him. And yes, Darcy Kemper and Pavel Francouz, they're okay, but they're no Vasilevskiy. They're just not, man. And there is a clear advantage there for the Lightning. And that consistency in goal has been so huge for the Lightning over these 3 cup runs.
Absolutely. And you see that with any of the teams that have had that sort of like small dynasty in a way, with looking back at the Blackhawks back in their three Stanley Cups in 6 years. It's that key goaltending is what keeps you in contention. And that's what the Lightning have here with Vasilevskiy. I mean, as a team, you look at stats, as their save percentages, 0.939. So it's like you are saving a lot of shots, and that's what keeps them in contention, even when their offense isn't necessarily keeping up with a lot of other teams. Is they can hold down games on any given day just by locking up on defense.
Yeah, and we talk about how good Vasilevskiy has been. Is that kind of neutralized by the goal scoring capability of Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen? Because they can put pucks on net like nobody's business. They don't really have to like set up a play and look for that perfect shot. They're not afraid to take risks and put pucks on net. And, you know, more often than not, when we see the puck goes in, and they have a ton of guys that they can attack you with. So what we're seeing here is essentially Goliath versus Goliath. And it's going to be a very fun matchup. Grab your popcorn, because you're going to want to tune into this one. But before we wrap it up, we're going to give our Stanley Cup Finals predictions. Let's see how these age. Tim, you want to go first?
Sure. And of course, with me not necessarily watching these two teams the whole way through, it makes it a little bit more of a shot in the dark compared to some of my other predictions. But from what I've seen out of these two teams, I mean, you got to love the experience and the defensive-minded team like the Lightning. But the Colorado Avalanche have just been really, really solid, especially throughout this playoffs. They've been on a tear throughout the playoffs. And I love their goal scorers. I love the upstart young talent that they have. And I looked at some of the rest and the goal scoring that the Avalanche have to sort of stun the Lightning a little bit. And I actually am going to go out on a limb to say that the Avalanche stun them to the point where they actually win it in 6. I think it'll definitely be a good series, and I think there's not going to be many blowout games in the series. They're going to be close the whole way. When you've got two powerhouse teams like that, they're going to be battles. But I think that the Avalanche are going to be able to stun them in a couple that the Lightning really feel like they should have won, and I see them wrapping it up in 6.
That is a bold prediction. And this is definitely the Avalanche's toughest test when you look at their road through the playoffs.
This is also the Lightning. I think the Lightning's toughest test out of all of their three
Lightning's
playoff runs of those last 3 years. This is, I think, by far the toughest team they faced throughout these last 3 years, especially in the Cup Finals.
Oh, 100%. And like there are stars all over the ice. We can just go on forever about the big names and the big players and the X factors here. But I'm going to make the prediction that although Tampa Bay is going for their 3rd straight cup, and that postseason experience does play dividends when you get deep into the playoffs, there are some guys on the Avalanche, McKinnon, Landeskog, that have been there through some
up and coming talent is
some
just,
really
tough
rough
to,
times.
Tough to bet against.
Well, not just like the up and coming talents, but like the guys that have been there through the tough times, through the playoff losses.
They have a lot of guys that really haven't been talked about enough up until this point now that they've gotten here.
McKinnon wants that ring so badly. After their playoff defeats, you can see how painful it is for him. And
he will his team finally to get over the hump.
Especially McKinnon, but the rest of the guys on this team that have been there through the painful playoff losses are going to come out with a vengeance. They will not be denied. And although I don't have them in 6, I think they're going to take it the distance and win it in 7. But like you said, it's gonna be close games throughout, and I can't wait.
Any of these ones can swing either way on any given day. You see this out of so many championship series when you have two teams that are so evenly matched and so good that it's so hard to predict because you never know what's going to happen. But it's impossible for me to say that this isn't going to be a battle of a series because you've got, arguably, I think, especially in this Cup series compared to some of the ones in years past, you definitely have the two best teams from each conference coming together to battle it out in the winner take all.
You do. And although we both picked the Avalanche to win it, will either one of us or the NHL in general really be surprised if the Tampa Bay Lightning capture their 3rd straight?
It would really cap off their dominance and cement themselves as one of the
would you really
legacies.
Be surprised if they win it? And the answer to that is no. So it is very much anybody
that good.
Cup Finals.
Absolutely.
And that'll wrap up our Stanley Cup preview. We will be going through that series as well as it goes along, and it'll be a fun one to watch. Strap in, grab some popcorn, and watch arguably one of the most exciting Stanley Cup Finals matchups that we've seen in a long time.
We're in for a fun series.
Yes, we are. But if you want to watch some of our other stuff on Running the Table, we have NFL, MLB, NBA. If you want to take a trip down memory lane and watch March Madness, we did that too. We'll be covering so much
more. We like
stuff.
expanding our content.
Yes, we do. But until next time, like and subscribe for more of our stuff, and we out.
I have had something in my eye like the whole recording, and I'm like, please stop.